Hi, this is Greg Koopman. This is a continuation of the last video called Proof of Concept Template Database Created with Help from Database Snapshot Technology. Well, this is the part I told you is some cleanup that we need to do to the backup file from that database. I didn't want to continue as a long video, as over 30 minutes, and I didn't want to prolong it anymore, especially on a part of the topic area that was not so much in regards to database snapshot technology. So what we're going to do in this video is just go through cleaning up the database backup that we made of what we called the small, we took the large database, we reduced it, by 517 million rows down to about 600,000 rows. Then we saved a backup of it. Well, that backup is not exactly pure and it needs to be cleaned up. And that's what we're going to do in this video. It shouldn't be a very long video. Overview. The problem. Derived small database backup is not in sync with internal small database names. The solution. 7-step script to place correct names for physical and logical names of small database into metadata. Okay, we're going to run the script that's going to do the cleanup for us, and I'm going to explain each step of the 7 steps. Okay, step number 1 of 7. Show how backup from lesson 4, which is a POC DW large for small backup, needs cleanup. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, first of all, let's see what we got. We still have, when we finished our last lesson, well, we had restored from a snapshot database, a database snapshot, back to the DW large, and we got our 517 million rows back, and everything was beautiful. It took 8 seconds to do it. Okay, and then right before that, we had saved a backup over to our hard drive, and that was we called it, before we did the restore the snap, when we got it down to 600,000 rows, we did this small, this backup here, which is called small, right? It's the DW large for small POC template, and that backup there, right? And we did see that, and as you can see from here, that was drastically smaller than the full backup, which is DW large, okay? 11 gig and half a gig. Okay, so what we have to do is, what I'm trying to tell you is that what's inside this database conflicts with this database. That's why we have to do a cleanup. Okay, so we have to get this all back to a good state. So let me also show you that in the database, well, in the database we don't have that right now, but so what we're going to do next in step 2 here is we're going to take a look. So here's the path and the name of that small backup that I'm telling you is not in a pure state. So this statement, restore file list only, from here, will tell us what the file names, both the physical and the logical file names, that's going to try to restore to. So I'm going to run that, and as we see, okay, so as we see here, the logical name in this backup, so this goes out to Windows and hits that database, this process here, this command, and so we see the logical name is POC template DW large data. Well, that's not right. We want that to say DW small data. We want this one to say POC template DW small log. Okay? As well as our physical name, we want that to also say small. Right? DW small logs, DW small. Okay? This is what we have to change, because if we try to restore this the way it is, it's going to overwrite the large database with the data that's in the small database, just because these names are all screwed up. Okay? And it isn't that we made a mistake, it's just the way it works when we had to back it up. We couldn't back it up with these other names at that point. Okay, so that's step 2. We found out the names, right? And actually those names, we should copy those down. You should copy those down somewhere, but I've already updated the script with the proper names. So the next step is to run this next script that changes the physical name. So it's going to change the physical name using this statement. It's going to restore the database to our new name, which is ZPOC template small, because we know that data is good. We know it's small, and the data is small. It's the names that are the problem. So here's the name of the file, right? Just like I showed you. So we're going to restore from that file on disk. But here we're going to say move, right? And when we say move, we're going to what it does is it's going to take the logical name that's in there already, and it's going to change the physical name to small. It identifies that row of data by this logical name, so we have to keep the large there and the large log there. But then we can change the physical name. So it's a 2 steps. Can't change both the logical and physical in the same command. We have to do 2 different commands to do this. So this is the first command. Okay. Okay. So let's just run this command. Okay. So we're going to restore the database with recovery, and the logical names are pointing to the new physical names called small. So at the end of this, the file names internally to the database called DW small will also say small in their name. Okay, that's executing. Okay, it finished. It took 11 minutes and 11 and a half minutes. So I think what happened, and when we go and we see it named it properly. Down here we can see now it's called the small data, small log. And when we go over to our database and look at the see if it restored here, we can refresh, and there it is, the small, right? And there's a large, so that's good. That's what we want. And the small should have just the 600,000 rows for this particular fact table, right? Instead of 517 million. So if we went, there it is, 601,000, exactly what we wanted. Okay, so that's good. So why did it take 11 minutes? I mean, that's a long time. So let's go back to the, here it is. Let's see how big it is here. Oh my gosh, it's 64 gigabytes. It's just like the large. Why is it taking up so much gigabytes? Why is it taking so much? Well, the reason why is because SQL Server, once it grows, it doesn't give it back. If you delete stuff out of it and that sort of thing, it doesn't give back disk space. It does some on the log. Even the log doesn't unless you shrink the log. So yeah, it doesn't give it back. And we didn't shrink it. And rarely do you want to shrink a database. But in this case, probably a good idea to shrink it, because out of that 64 gigs, it's a tremendous amount of data that's just blank in there. So this isn't part of this step, but I think we're just going to go ahead and do it anyways. And I'm going to do it right now. And I think it shrinks really quick because I've had to do this. But it's not something you want to do very often, to shrink a database, because if it's let's say you have a database that's 90% full and you shrink it, it moves all the pages all over the place. So now it's no longer, a lot of stuff will become fragmented. So a lot of times when you run a shrink database, or shrink file, you're going to also want to then index, rebuild all your indexes and that sort of thing, so that your pages on the disk aren't fragmented, so you don't have all these page splits and it's flying, and otherwise it's going to be really slow. But in this case, what we're going to do is, I'm going to shrink this database. Let's make sure I'm in the right database. So I'm in DW small. I'm on the database name. Go into tasks and go to shrink. I'm just going to shrink the whole database. Okay, so what it's saying is available space. Look at this. Look at this for available space. 97%. If there's any candidate for a shrink database, this is it. Okay, and that's because of, all those 517 million rows are gone and it's all blank. Okay, so yeah, let's here's another part. Reorganize files before releasing unused space. Select this option may affect performance. This is what I'm talking about. To reorganize them all, then they're when you do shrink, a lot of them are moved from where they're sitting and moved over into the front, and it causes fragmentation. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say maximum in space after. Okay. And now it's shrinking away. It's a lot to shrink. So remember, we had about 64 gigabytes on disk. So after this process is done, let's say we have a couple hundred megabytes, the whole database. But we'll see, and this might take a little while to go ahead and for it to chop all that stuff. Well, it's done. Not a very nice message at the end. It says it successfully succeeded, but successfully succeeded. Didn't successfully finish. But let's go see what we got now. So we go back to our databases, our files, and let's move over, and they are, there it is. Went from 64 gigs to 897 meg. Okay, so that's pretty much what I thought. Okay, so now when we do the backup later, when we get everything organized, and then we do a restore, it won't be 11 minutes. It'll be like 30 seconds or whatever it is. Okay, I'll show you that. Okay, so that's something to take note of. Now, back on the other video, the video just prior to this, with this, when you're doing a database snapshot, I wouldn't do a shrink in between taking the snapshot and then restoring the snapshot. Don't do a shrink in between. Okay? Because if you do that, I think you're going to run into some problems when you do the restore. Okay? If it does restore at all, and if it does restore, it's probably going to be extremely slow. Okay? It might not even be able to restore if you do that. So you have to check, do further technical reading on that. Again, that's why I said make sure you have a real backup when you do any of this kind of stuff, okay? We're not DBAs, we're developers. But in fact, if you can get your DBAs to do this for you, that's a good idea, okay? But, it's good to know, it's definitely good to understand to some degree all this material as a developer. But you want to be able to utilize these techniques so you can get proof of concept templates going, okay? All right, so let's go on to step 4. So actually, let's look at one more thing here. We're going to look at the properties now of our small, right? Small, large, small. We're going to look at our properties. And what we're going to see in our properties, when we go to files, right? And we look at our logical file. Our logical file still is large. We expected that. You remember I said you have to run 2 commands, one for the physical and then one for the logical. So we had to do the physical first. And let's go over here and look at physical. All right, so our physical looking good. There it is. It's saying it's small. That's what we want it to say. So we're looking really good. And on our disk, when we go to disk, just like we had just done, we have our large and our small. That's what we want. Okay, because before our backup only had large. It would have overwritten these other larges if, it might have done that. So you could have run into big problems there. All right, so let's go to the next step, which is to get our logical database names correct. So step 4 And we alter the database, DW small. We modify the file, and we modify the name, which is large data, right? The logical name. And our new name is going to be small data. And our large log and small log, right? So this should take a second, or less. So I'm going to execute that. All right. Well, I have a typo. So I have alter POSDW small and alter database test DB2. No, that's not it. It's this one. It's also temp DB small. Okay. So we already. That's all right. So now we have DW small data and DW small log under logical name. So that worked. Okay. So as we see, our DW small is looking really good. And just go through it again real quick. We go to the file properties of the database. We see that our logical name is correct. And we come over here and we see that our physical name is correct. So we're in good shape now. Okay, so what we're going to do is to finish up our cleanup, we're going to go through Windows and delete the old unclean backup because we don't want to be confused later when we have to restore backups because we're going to do a lot of restoring from these templates, okay? Okay, so here's my SQL backups, and I have the real large one, which is 11 gigabytes. And then I have the one that I was saving temporarily in the last video, and that what I just got that's tainted, and that we just corrected. We just restored it and corrected all the names, the underlying physical file names, and the logical file names. So this guy I want to get rid of because I don't want him hanging around and screw me up again, and I have to go redo that stuff again. So I want to get rid of that backup. Again, this is a backup, and that's only that for the temporary one. The large one we're keeping, okay? By the way, I want you to remember 524 KB. Because remember, when we backed that up, we were backing up that 64 gigabytes. But when the backup ran, it must have just been backing up the data piece of it, the pages that had data on them. Because this really was, it's much smaller, right? Okay, so first of all, I want to delete this guy, but just remember that 524 megabytes, and let's see if we get a decrease in that size when we do a backup. Okay, now what we want to do, because to get to the final part of this thing, is we got our database exactly the way we want. So let's go back it up. So I come over here, just do a normal backup task. Go to backup. Backup. All right. We have the database name, DW small, which is good. Z, of course, it's where it lands at the bottom. Okay, we're going to back up the disk down to here. Okay, and we have that, it automatically names it what we want for now. I mean, when you do if you did an automated thing, they put a timestamp on it or something else. But this is a proof of concept template. We probably only need one of these guys, okay? So we probably don't have to be backing this up hardly ever. It isn't like your rotational backups of real data. Okay, so we have that backup, and I think we can just go forward with this thing. So let's do some media options. Let me just get a little bigger here. Okay, so what we're going to do is, I'm not going to say overwrite, even though we're not going to overwrite anything in this case. I want to verify the backup is when finished, and I want to perform a checksum to make sure we don't have any corruption in it. And I want to do one other thing, and that is put the compression on. Okay, so now we have compression on, and we're going to run this thing. And again, this should be lickety split. Okay, this should be fast. 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Okay. So, executing. Done. Okay, so what, about 25 seconds? I say 25 seconds, the backup's done. Full backup. And now let's go look at that size. All right. Well, okay, the size really did not change hardly at all. 518. So, megs. So okay, I thought it might decrease even more, but it didn't, because it's just backing up the data, the pages with data on it, not all the pages of the database. Even though the database has 64 gigabytes, had 64 gigabytes on the last video. This time it only has 800 megabytes, and it looks like even with it just backs up the data, so they're both the same. About okay, so that's that. Let's go to our last step, which is 7 of 7. Go to SQL Management Studio and run command that lists files in the backup file. Okay, so basically we just backed up to POC template DW small dot back. Remember, we used the same command at the beginning to see what was in the original backup we had, and we could see that they didn't match, right? That's the whole point of the video. They didn't match, and we wanted them to match. So now we redid everything, and we re-backed up to a whole new backup file. Now when we run this, all the file names should match with that small, okay? So I'm going to run this, and here we are. Logical name, POC template DW small data, small log, okay? And then we come over, and then we come right here, and our physical file, right, is DW small data and DW small log. Hey, this is looks like it's a winner. So that proves it all. So it looks like we got the. And let's do one more thing. Let's just do another restore of it and see how fast that runs, just for kicks and giggles. So remember, it took 11 minutes before, and now we've really decreased that size. So let's see if it runs a little faster, since it's only going to restore to 800 megabytes instead of 64 gigabytes. So I'm going to go to database and go to the file, which is small, right? Okay, say okay. I'm going to go to files and say relocate all files. Nope, they're in good shape. Those are good. Let's just say overwrite. Okay, looks like we're ready. So let's go and say, instead of 11 minutes, hopefully this only takes a couple seconds. So we're looking down here. We're looking down here at the progress bar. Let's see how long it takes. Oop, there it is. Oop, there it is. It's completed. So what was that, 15 seconds, 10 seconds? Okay, so that's how long it takes to get the restore now of our finalized version of our template backup for the small version of the template of the proof of concept database. Excellent. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you need help solving SQL Server problems, I offer a remote help service for writing code, configuration, and training. You can go to my website shown below for more information. I hope this video has helped you and made your day a little better. Thank you.